49er fans, real quickly, I just have to hop on here and say, I think a lot of what you are seeing in San Francisco is more of a product of a divided locker room and maybe a cantankerous culture than it is actually a problem with, per se, the defense as well as some other things. What I mean is everybody that had common sense knew Kyle Shanahan, first of all, handled the quarterback situation incorrectly from the beginning. There should have been a quarterback competition from the darn beginning that allowed Brock Purdy to face off against Darnold, that allowed him to face off against Trey Lance, and the winner be allowed to start the season. We hitched our wagons to a guy that is rushing back from injury. Kudos to Brock. It takes a lot of toughness to do what he did, but I don't think mentally he was prepared for the brunt of, first of all, quarterbacks go through sophomore slumps their second season. You couple that with the fact that now you have a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. You have leaders who are in the twilight of their careers who want to win now, but the trajectory of your health, which should be important, has been tossed on the back burner, and now you're seeing it playing to the forefront. There have been concussions, there have been rib issues, and several other health issues. He's not even in a situation where he can heal properly because now the franchise has given the keys wholly to Brock Purdy after 7 games, and now we're starting to see the Iowa State version of Brock coming to the forefront. I feel like the guy's under pressure. I can say a lot of these things till my face turns blue, and you guys will consider me to be a hater, but as somebody who actually played the game of football and who actually is with the pros, I do have an eye for the game. And I have said this on a lot of the fan pages. You guys labeled me as a hater when I said this, but I was like, Brock Purdy is too dependent on Christian McCaffrey. If teams figure out a way to take Christian out of the game, they'll realize that Brock is very simplistic in his approach, and he is not going to really be able to spread the ball all across the field. He locks in on targets, and where else have we seen this from? Jimmy Garoppolo. One of the second reasons I feel as if we also have a cultural clash is think back to this phenomenon called Nick Bosa. Coming in, there was a lot of, let's say, I don't really like getting into the racial aspect of it, but he was a very big Trump supporter, and some of his opinions on some things were very outspoken. Now, I do think that Richard Sherman, as a leader, was great in galvanizing the locker room. But one thing I never saw from Nick is like pregame speeches. I never saw Nick in public like being a leader and lifting up his teammates like some of the other veterans did. He was a phenomenal talent. The guy was a phenomenal pass rusher. But as a leader, he tended to live on his own island. So now as you're coming into the season and you have a guy with all that talent, and we've already got the Trey Lance, Brock Purdy situation going on, got a new defensive coordinator, and now this guy is going to wait until basically the season has started. And this is after having trained by himself in some other luxurious, land. His teammates are down training in the heat. They're training together, learning these new defensive schemes and assignments. And this guy decides to throw a temper tantrum and say, hey, I'm not playing unless I get another contract. You can look at the defense and tell us not galvanized. Yes, there are some tweaks that Steve Wilks must make. We got to get out of this zone dependency. We've got to start getting guys in areas of strength like Hufanga. Guy is better off when you can place him closer to the line, allow him to blitz, allow him to make plays by the line of scrimmage, and don't try to put him in coverage. If you remember when he ran the 40, he's not the fastest guy, but he is a playmaker. But when you try to use him traditionally, in the backfield, trying to be a ball hawk in the field, that is not where he excels. That's why it always looks like he's around the tackles, but he's not there fast enough to stop the play. Also, I'm looking at our linebackers. Something about the positioning is not right. Fred Warner is the best at what he does when utilized correctly in the league. If you're looking at the stat sheets, He's still getting a bunch of tackles. However, now he's not making the plays that we were accustomed to him making. I don't know if we're just trying to traditionally check a box and make him something that he's not, but we got to get Fred back eating along with Greenlaw. But most importantly, that defensive line, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Earlier in the season, I noted that there was a game where Javon Kinlaw was getting double team and Bosa was getting single team more often than not. And Bosa wasn't getting any pressure. Y'all, we went out and we signed Javon Hargraves to a great big contract. What does it produce? I mean, we've got bodies on that line all across the board. Armstead is still getting double team. Yes, he is a little older. He's operating as a little step slower, but all in all, none of the units on this team are looking very well coached. That's the difference between this year at 5-3, 8 games in, and last year when we were 3-5. At least some of the units, i.e. the defense, was the foundation for our team's success. So we knew that if the offense could come around, that we would be fine. But y'all, 3 games in a row, Shanahan, who is supposed to be an offensive guru, is getting flat-footed out-coached. We have always said this about Shanahan. If you can knock him out of his strategy, he's not a guy that can just go bare knuckles, barnyard fighting, and pick you apart like the old offensive coordinators used to do. He's well manicured, but now is the time where he has to, as a coach, take that extra step that we know he has and coach this team through this dark times. I'm not really worried about the Niners yet. However, if they face another loss in the next 2 or 3 games, yes, I will be concerned because now we're starting to look for the panic button, and stay tuned.